Hey there, today I have an order summary video, and in this video I'm going to go over the breakdown of the order that I placed with Mile High Comics. This will be the companion video to unboxing episode number 190, and if you remember, this is the one where I got a couple of issues of Vanguard Illustrated, which is actually kind of funny because I just got a comment on that video that said that Mile High is on to us. The commenter, I guess, is a frequent buyer of or from Mile High Comics, or buyer specifically of David Stevens books, as he reported that issues of Alien World and Vanguard Illustrated have increased in price, or as he put it, they're jacked up. And it's something I think about a lot, where I'm revealing and trying to be transparent about what I'm doing in hopes that people that enjoy my content, obviously this video being for channel members, you're watching this, you're supporting me, that you'll see where I'm buying comics from, and you'll see the numbers and see what I'm paying, and you might see a comic and say, you know what, looks to be in good shape, definitely has some CGC value, I'm going to go purchase the same book. It's an interesting topic that I think I want to save for another video, but the short, kind of concise version of the thoughts is really, when you're talking about comics, you're talking about them because you love them, you want to share, you want to find a fellow collector with some mutual interest in a comic and so forth. And also you want to help them out. Say, hey, this just happened to me. A good friend of mine sent me a link. Hey, this book's for sale. Got it at a good price. I picked up a copy. I clicked the link, didn't hesitate, bought it. And it's just kind of what we do as collectors. We're trying to share, but then there's part of it that's also kind of like, well, maybe I want to save this for myself. Maybe I want to hoard this information, or I don't want to let people know this is where I'm picking up multiple copies of Seduction of the Innocent, Vanguard Illustrated, and so forth. So it's just something that I'm going to keep thinking about as I go forward, but it's not going to change the content. I think that I want to continue to do it, but as I get comments around that, it does make me kind of wonder, like, am I revealing almost too much in a way? I don't think that's the case. I think my viewership is what it is, and I'm not really creating a scenario where the market's drying up of a particular book, or certainly Mile High Comics supply, which happen. I think it's an endless supply of comics, and I think just as comics are bought, they adjust their prices just like any seller. But I think the debate running around in my head is how the presentation of the unboxings, and now the order summary that we're about to get into, comes off, because where I'm coming from is sharing. I'm sharing the information. I'm showing different ways you can think about collecting, but I think some people perceive this as also sort of either bragging or maybe even trying to inflate values and things like that. And I might be reading too much into it, but I think that some people believe that. I also received a comment that I was too pretentious. Like, I think that there's some part of it that, because people don't know me, the sharing of the information might come off a certain way, or maybe I spend too much money on comics or something like that. But it's really around an evolution of a multi-decade collecting process, like starting to really come together in kind of a way that's useful. And I'll probably end up changing the way that I do things. I mean, I've noticed that Infinity Comics has an auction ending right now, and I'm getting outbid relentlessly by the same three bidders, but now also a handful of bidders with no feedback. And it's fine. It's okay. I don't mind it. It's just something that I have to think about going forward. So if you have any thoughts on this, would love to hear from you directly, or feel free to leave a comment. I want to get to the order summary to kind of show you how the books ended up turning out from Mile High Comics. Like every order from Mile High, there were some interesting gems, and then there were some head scratchers. Let's start off right here with Adventure Comics number 432. This ended up grading as a 7.5. There were quite a few spine ticks, I think you saw in the unboxing video, and then there was also some creasing and some additional stacking crease on the back. Just the sheer number of spine ticks there. This was the big disappointment. The other weird thing too, and I really can't stand this about the values and looking, and I look at everything like recent sales and things like that. But when there aren't really any recent sales of this book, so in a CGC 7.5, technically the value is $78 based on all of the data sources, just because the 7.5 hasn't sold in a while. But if I were to get the book back from CGC in an 8.0, you'll see the fair market value drop to, I think it's like $20 or something. 16, there you go, even less. It's kind of a situation where I need to really rethink how I'm purchasing these books. I used to like try to include 120-cent type of issue with every Mile High order, but I might just stop doing that and rely more on Hip Comic for those, or really look at going back and experimenting with some pickups from Mile High and Fine and Very Fine, like trying to find the best keys in fine condition, something like that, like some sort of experimental, and really grade them out and see if they turn out to be 6.0. But I paid $44.54 to get a 7.5 for a book that has a fair market value of 19 that I probably couldn't get $10 for. And so that's where I really need to stop that, I think. And the temptation's always there when you see these Silver Age, early Bronze Age books listed in near mint, and you want to roll the dice and hope it works out, but it's just not the case. So looking at the summary, I think I skipped that part. The summary, I was invoiced $234.20 for these 13 comics from Mile High, paid $7 insurance that I distributed across the order. And you'll see the average grade here ended up being 9.254. I think I probably say this during the unboxing that the Mile High near mint is averaging around 9.2, and I think that that's true across all of my orders over time, as that's kind of where it falls. Now, if I take out the 7.5 completely, it will just average everything else, and I think you'll see the overall average go up a little bit here, exactly precisely 9.4. So that's not bad. It's just unfortunate that 175 snuck in there. So had I not purchased that, maybe I'm gushing over the order being finally once and for all a true near mint order with everything averaging out 9.4. But I have to include it as part of the average for this order. But overall, it's not necessarily skewing the average of all the books over time that much. Back to the summary. If you're looking at the total cost here in column Z, $234.20, matching the invoice amount. The raw value add, $126.80. $54 of that $126 driven by the two Vanguard illustrated books. I paid $15.74 for each of those, which I think is just an absolute steal. So it does make sense that Mile High is increasing those prices, and it just could be that they're getting a lot of orders, and maybe there's something in the system that, I don't want to say it's run like Gmart. The way Gmart works is they will automatically increase the price of a comic as their inventory gets reduced. And I think it's actually quite genius of their setup. They're the only store that I know of that does this automatically. So you can buy multiple copies, but sometimes it'll say that it has 5 issues available at cover price, and then you're like, well, I want 10, and it'll say, nope, you can buy 5, but you can buy 2 more, and now it's triple cover, just to kind of allow them to make a few dollars if there is a book that all of a sudden pops. So I'm not saying that Mile High has a sophisticated system like that, but it is interesting, to me anyway, that a book like that, I mean, $15, $16 if you're adding insurance, the upside is there, and both of those I gave a 9.6. They just have some light creasing on the cover. I think one of them had a little bit of a rounded corner that is kind of iffy, but I have them both in the pile to go out to Palm Beach Comic Pressing, they were very good about working on the last one for me and got it into a 9.8. And if you look at the value of this book in a 9.8, I'll leave the other one as a 9.6 so you can see the difference. It's just, I have to always include it in my order, $269 for that book in a 9.8. Let's talk about a couple of the losers, and then we'll bounce back to the other winner here. 9.2 on Criminal #1, disappointing. I feel like I can still find that book. I think the hype now for these books, they spike and they drop right back down faster than ever before. So I'm sure I can find that one. But I give it a 9.2. It definitely had a pretty significant rounded corner. $28 raw, but $3 in CGC. It's probably somewhere around 10 to 20. I paid $29.34 for Criminal Number One. I still think just holding on to it raw, I think, is a good idea, especially if that series gets developed. I think it would be very well received if done right. Bloodstone Number Three, also a 9.2. I think that's just karma for me making fun of the book. It had a really bad blunted bottom left corner. I remember back, I did a video years ago about how to get those out, but when I sent a book to Palm Beach that had a blunted corner, I did get a response from him that was like, it was just too blunted or too damaged. There's nothing you can do. I'm not saying I'm better than him, but I do remember that specific defect, it took a lot of effort and a lot of like extra steps in order to get that out. So you'll have to think about that if you have a blunted corner that's really that mashed, as if you're smashing it down on a table and it's like rippling back through the book. As long as it doesn't break color, you can press that out, but you'd have to talk to your presser and say, this has a pretty bad blunted corner. Are you going to flatten the book and press it flat first, and that before you press it the standard way? Other than that, the rest of the order was pretty straightforward. Batman 609 came back at a 9.4. I think it has a couple of creases on the middle of the cover that would need to be pressed out, one on the front and one on the back, but not too bad. 9.4, $48 fair market value. I paid almost $26 for that one, already $71 in a 9.4. Daredevil 28, I talked about that one as kind of being a cornerstone of a lot of my Mile High purchases recently. $5.74 for that book. Unfortunately, it was a 9.4. There were a lot of wrinkling and creasing to the spine that I don't even want to send to a presser. I don't think it's worth the trouble. It's great if it's a 9.8 candidate on its own, or it can be pressed into a 9.8, but I think it would get pressed into a 9.6, and it's really just, it's not worth the trouble. It's a $15 book right now. You can get it from Mile High for $6 if you really want it. I think it'll go up maybe and be a $20 book if the Daredevil Born Again series picks up any of the Wilson Fisk Mayer storyline, but it's not a significant book beyond that that's going to make it a $100 raw book. It's going to sit somewhere in the $10 to $20 range, but it's there, and I have a copy 9.4 that I'm probably going to try and sell, so I've marked it here as for sale, or PS for post to sale, trying to save a little space in the column. As well as the Adventure Comics, I think I'm going to try and let that one go and try and get some of my money back. Although the sale price is skewed because of this fair market value being so high. If it were a CGC graded slab, I do factor that in when I'm figuring out my pricing. The other big one here that I'm interested to see how it comes back is Incredible Hulk 347. I almost just gave it a 9.8 as is. It's very close. And then when I turn the book over, there's just a little slight stack increase on the back. And I feel like that just needs a nice quick press, flatten out that back cover, and then it gets the 9.8. And this book in a 9.8, I think it was well over $138. This book sat on Mile High the entire time that 50% coupon was there, and I had eyeballed it, and I almost bought it. $11.74 for that one, and lucked out and got a 9.8 candidate copy there. Wonder Woman 19 was a little disappointing. I gave that one a 9.2. I'm going to hold on to it just because of the Cersei character and all of that I went through. I don't have the book. I love the George Perez. I love a George Perez run on anything for that matter when you're talking about 70s and 80s comics. So I'm going to hold on to that one. Invincible 9.4, I'll probably hold on to that one too. Let me move over here and tell you ultimately what I sort of decided. I did mark here in column AH, you'll see a number of these. They need a press, so whenever they need a press, I put the letter P down. If it's a clean and press, a CP, and I note that because I want to know just how much effort it's really going to take to press a book. I probably should have like a blunted corner designation as well, but I really just have the two. So you can kind of see this is what I use to determine what I'm going to do. This still says PBCP for Palm Beach Comic Pressing. I use other pressers, not just him. So I need to change this, like, to just say needs press or something like that, or worth pressing. That's the whole point. This column indicates that the book needs a press. And then what I do is I evaluate the next 3 grade bumps to decide, is it worth it? The ones marked create listing, I decided I'm going to go ahead and try and sell these and get some of my money back. And then I have to fix this formula too, because it's showing pre-screen but needs a press. I definitely want to get those books pressed before they would go through a pre-screen. What I'm doing right now is sending all of my books for pressing and then for straight CGC grading. I'm not doing a press and pre-screen. I feel like that's too much investment in a book, and it would be more difficult, I think, to send the presser a 9.4 after the cost of that, have them press it, go to CGC, pay the pre-screen fee, then have the book come all the way back to me as a reject. Talk with a presser that you're working with too, because they may say that they could pre-screen the book on your behalf. I know Palm Beach will offer that service. I think it's relatively cheap. I want to say he charges a couple of bucks. And what you can do is send your books for pressing and let him know that you will send him a CGC invoice based on which books he thinks would get a 9.8. So that's another strategy I think that would be interesting. I trust myself, and also the books that I'm sending, I want them to be graded. I know they may not all get 9.8s, but the point is I want them slabbed. And in a lot of cases, even at a loss, it's easier to sell the slab. That may not make sense, but I have too many raw books that end up not selling and end up listing them for $1. Nobody buys them. But for some reason, if somebody sees a slab, they get excited and think they're getting a deal if they can get a slab for $8 or $10 or something like that. It's very strange, very weird, but I'm like, if I'm going to take the risk and submit the book, then I feel like it has a shot. I'm not always right, but I feel like the percentages are in my favor for it to work out more times than it doesn't. And so that the times that it doesn't, I just move on. And then the times that it does, like in the case of Vanguard Illustrated, that coming back at a 9.8, the value add, or if I were to sell the book, the margin there is so much greater than a few losses here and there. But I'm also trying to make sure that I move on from raw books that I just know don't have a chance, and trying to get something for the book raw as well. Lots of information there. I probably should save some of that and chunk it out into different videos or longer explanations, but appreciate you sticking with me for this order summary video. One last little update. If you stayed this long, thank you. The first episode of my new interview series is being recorded on February 7th with the guest Flip Flop Comics. He and I have gotten to know each other, and not really necessarily from a collaborative standpoint in the way that Dark Dominion Comics and I have a relationship, but this is truly just my genuine fascination with people trying to sell comics, dealing with grading, dealing with the pull of being a collector, and then trying to move on from books, like the whole like mindset and personality. I've been fascinated, and I've been talking to Flip Flop Comics regularly now for 2 or 3 months, and I've gotten to know him pretty well, and just a lot of times we're having a conversation. I'm like, we really need to record this and put it out there. And I have a very short guest list that I'm going to work on booking. If this first episode is well received, people like the format, then I will go ahead and start to reach out to some of my contacts from other YouTube channels or just other areas of comic book collecting in general, and get some guests on that I think some of us has seen or some of us haven't seen. And I think I think it's time. I really think it's time. I appreciate you putting up with just listening to me, but I think it would be interesting, I hope, to kind of observe me picking someone else's brain about the hobby. And I have some ideas to make it really kind of fun and interesting, and not just like a 2-hour live stream. of a round table of people just spitballing. So it'll have a very structured format and be time boxed, and I think it'll be good. So the first one's being recorded Wednesday, February 7th. It'll probably get edited and dropped later that day. And then go out to everybody on February 8th. So would love to get your feedback on this video, and especially on the new interview series. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.